Very happy to be here this evening. Hello, friends. It's a joy to be here. And so this evening, I'm going to speak about Kriya Yoga and the fact that it is really the highest science, and it's a very high aspect of yoga itself. I will do my best to make this talk inspiring, to want to go even deeper into your Kriya Yoga practice. And of course, we have people here as well who are not yet Kriyabans, and I will explain why one might want to think about becoming a Kriyaban. So I'm going to start off by reading a quote from the autobiography of a yogi on the chapter of Kriya Yoga. And this basically just explains what Kriya is. So Kriya Yoga is union. Of course, yoga means union with the infinite through a certain action or rite. A yogi who faithfully follows its technique is gradually freed from karma, or the universal chain of causation. And right there, that explains why it's the highest science, because Kriya can free us from all of the chains of karma. And for those of us who have struggled to simply try to become better human beings, perhaps we want to do more of certain poses in the morning before we go to work, or perhaps we want to go for a run or whatever. And then we realize it's not so easy to just set our mind to doing a certain action, that there's other forces in the world that prevent us from doing good actions. And we come to realize that we need a strong will, but we also need a deep understanding of life. And Kriya Yoga can give us that deep understanding of karma, of life, of energy, how it all comes together, so that we can learn to become masters of ourselves, so that we can work in harmony with the forces that govern this universe. Now, this is all very high and lofty stuff, and I want to start on just a very practical level, which I find fascinating. Yes, I used to do the springboard diving and platform diving, and people who do that need to be very flexible. And so my coaches for many years would simply push on my body and just try to, I don't know what they were trying to do, break something in my leg or something, but just to try to get me to be more flexible. And then when I came to understand yoga, and people told me, breathe. As you stretch, breathe into it. Exhale. It will help you become more flexible. And I started trying this, and I found that it was true, that I could use my breath to change how my physical body worked and how it felt and how flexible I could become. And I found that to be super, super fascinating. And then I began to realize that it's not only the physical breath, that it is the energy, that breath and energy are connected, and that I can learn by using my physical body in certain postures to understand this energy that is inside of me. I can use this energy to gain physical strength. I can use this energy to become more flexible. And that becomes super, super fascinating. For fun, I just want to go into more things on the physical plane for a moment. I promise I'll bring it back to Kriya Yoga and energy. But have you ever thought about this? Maybe I'm the only one, but when we go out running, or let's say you want to do some sit-ups and or whatever, you go to the gym and you want to build your bicep. That what we're doing in that is we are actually damaging the muscle cells a little bit. And then those cells, they're intelligent. They come back and they heal themselves and they come back stronger. Yet, so we could do sit-ups to try to work on our abs, or we could do hatha yoga. And I'm no genius at hatha yoga. I'm not even going to pretend that I am. So if I say something wrong, you can just know that I'm not a genius on hatha yoga, but I do know a little bit about Kriya Yoga. Anyways, we could do sit-ups and break those physical muscle cells, or we could do the V pose, where we simply lift our arms up in one way and the legs the other. And definitely, if you hold that pose, you're going to feel it in your abs. What's the difference? If we do the hatha yoga, that we are bringing energy into those same muscle cells and we're energizing them, and we will gain strength by doing that. or we can do the full physical contraction of it and actually damage the muscle cells and they'll come back stronger. And why do I think about these two different things? Is let me read again something from the autobiography of a yogi. And that is, the yogi arrests decay in the body by an addition of life force and arrests the mutations of growth in the body by upan, or the eliminating current, thus neutralizing decay and growth by quieting the heart. The yogi learns life control. I'm going to read one other thing. By stopping the accumulation of venous blood, the yogi is able to lessen or prevent decay of tissues. The advanced yogi transmutes his cells into pure energy, thus neutralizing decay and growth by quieting the heart. The yogi learns life control. So all of that reading means that we can learn to control in our body decay. And if you look at the average person from Ananda, and this is just average, you can go find any exception to the rule, but on average, the average person at Ananda looks about 10 years younger than he or she actually is. And the average person at Ananda, obviously, is practicing Kriya Yoga. Now, let's bring this all the way back to the sit-ups and the V pose. That the average person in Ananda is practicing Kriya, taking that same life force that could be used for sit-ups, where you break the cells and then have to repair them, or for the V pose, where you are just using the energy, but you won't have to repair those cells as much. Or you could sit perfectly still, try to not move any muscle cells, and try to bring in more and more energy into your body, repair all of the tissues, and get your body in such a state of balance that breathing becomes not as necessary. And then we can bring in more and more energy through using Kriya Yoga. And we can get to a point where our heart can become very, very still. And that extra energy can be brought up to the brain and we can focus very deeply. Now, why would we want to do that? Because if we can do that, we can learn to concentrate on higher realities. There's much more to life than just this physical plane. After a while, after many incarnations, this physical plane gets a little boring. Yes, you can go and it's a little different, and that mountain looks a little bit different than this mountain, but all the same, it's mountains, and we've seen lots of mountains. But after a while, we realize that there's a whole other world, that when we learn to turn off these five senses, that we can go within and we can explore higher worlds. But in order to do that, we have to learn to control our energy, raise our energy up to our brain, and learn to concentrate and focus on the portals, on the inner doors. So there's so much to every human being. There's so much more to you than you're probably aware of. And if you will practice Kriya Yoga properly with guidance, that you can learn to become who you truly are. And you can learn to control, isn't it amazing? All of the decay and growth of all of the different cells in your body. To me, that's tremendously amazing because I believe that there's 33 trillion cells in your body. And Paramahansa Yogananda gave that number before modern science even had a clue what that number is. And for the math geniuses out there listening right now, that number is a fun one to try to calculate because all of your different cells are being born and die at different rates. And so it's not just a matter of counting each little cell. They're all continually dying and being born at different rates. And there's all this calculus that has to be done to try to even approximate that number, but Master knew it long before modern science even knew it. But why is that exciting to me? Because we can become master of every single cell and learn to get very, very still, very, very calm. And the highest reason that I practice Kriya Yoga is that I want joy more than even being a master of my body on the physical plane. I simply want joy, and that joy, true joy, is to be found on the inside in deep meditation. Whatever joy we find on the outside through the five senses, there's usually nothing wrong with it. But we should realize that it is only a reflection of our own reactions to life. If we find something that we really like and is really bringing us joy, what's really happening is energy is moving up our spine, and that flow of energy upward is causing the joy. And we can learn to, rather than have to go outward and continually try to find outward stimulus for joy, no matter what's going on, even if it's something that most people would think of as negative, we can still say, within myself, I am happy. And we can have an inner joy that absolutely nothing in this world can take away if we will learn to gain control over our life force. So this is really what Kriya does for us. And Ananda Sangha is a beautiful thing that in all of our teachings, whether you're learning Kriya Yoga or whether you're learning a simple meditation technique, we start on the physical plane because that's what we mainly understand. We all know the physical plane and we begin to watch physical things like our physical breath. But then as we go higher into any of the different teachings, we begin to realize that behind that is energy and that we can learn to control that energy. Again, Kriya Yoga is about learning to control the energy, but we can first begin to learn to control the breath. And obviously, I was just reading this chapter about Kriya Yoga and the autobiography of a yogi, and Master talks about the tortoise, which breathes 4 times a minute, versus the restless monkey, I believe, that breathes 32 times a minute. And I don't remember how long the monkey lives, but not very long. But the tortoise lives for 300 years. And Master, when I say Master, I mean Paramahansa Yogananda, is making the point that if we have a slow, calm breathing rate, that we can prolong our lives. And it's not that simple. There's obviously karma. There's all kinds of different things going on in each one of our lives. But generally speaking, if we can have a calm breathing rate, that we can live longer. And if we're happy, we want to live longer. If we're sad, we think, well, I wouldn't want that anyways. But Kriya will give you both. It will give you the happiness and it will show you how you can live longer. I want to bring this back to exercise for a moment because yes, Kriya Yoga is the highest exercise that we can do, but I'm a firm believer also, even in physical exercise, get out there, go running, do sit-ups, break those muscle cells. You will be flowing. If you go outside and go for a run, what's going to happen? You're going to flow more energy. And I also think it will help you become a happier person. Here's an interesting thing to think about. Will that make your breathing rate go up? And will you live a shorter lifespan if you go out running every day? As long as you keep your exercise in moderation, I don't think so. The people that I've observed, that it makes them healthier, generally speaking, physical exercise. So let's say they do 20-minute run, but then let me do half hour to make the math a little easier. Half hour run, then the other 23 hours and a half that they're doing, their heart rate will come down because all of their system has kind of been cleaned out by that running, and their breathing rate will come down, and so they will live longer. You can think that through a little bit later. I believe that it's true. But the point I also wanted to make on this is that when you go out there running, you're going to be flowing more energy. But again, it's a wonderful thing to learn how to flow that energy on the physical plane, doing something like running. But it's also a wonderful thing then to take that higher flow of energy and learn how to direct it inwardly, so that we can have deep states of meditation. And that we can access these deep states of peace, love, and joy that I've been talking about here. I also want to talk about controlling the reactive process. I talked a little bit about it, but I'll tell you a little story. Those of you who know me well have probably heard this 10 times, but here we go again. I was in Gorgon and Swamiji was giving a satsang, and afterwards he took time for questions and answers. And someone asked him, when should you feel these currents of energy that are constantly flowing up and down the spine that cause us to breathe? And I thought he was going to say, when you practice Kriya Yoga, you should feel those currents. But he very much surprised me He said that you should be able to feel those currents 24 by 7. You should feel them all the time, in essence, is what he said. And that really shocked me. But the point of that is that through Kriya, we can learn to feel this energy in our spines. We can learn to control it. And then we can completely control our reactive process, no matter what is going on in life. And that, let me be honest with you here. That's like fine. I come on stage here and say these things, but Preeti, myself, others probably here, Lata, we lived with Swami Kriyananda and we watched him live that. That no matter what was going on, terrible things, great things, that he was always the same. He was just a bundle of sweet little innocent joy that you could take your problems to and he would fix them, even though he was in charge of so many different things in the world. He never let those things weigh him down. And so there are those of us here, we've seen it with our own eyes. We've lived it. I mean, we watch Swamiji live the teachings, and we know that there are souls who have completely learned to control the reactive process, and that can be cheerful and even-minded at all times. And living with other people, watching other people do that in difficult times, for me, that's when I really learned. That's much more than just reading a book. You read a book and you're inspired and you think, wow, this Paramahansa Yogananda seems great, but he's not in the body. I can't meet him anymore. You can meet him, though, through his disciples who also are living the teachings. And you can get inspired and you can know that that it really, really works. And you see, the point here is that Kriya can become a way of life. It's not just taking a certain amount of time each day and huffing and puffing and doing some breathing exercise, that it's doing your Kriya deeply enough in attunement with the great ones, and then bringing that out into your daily life and being a cheerful person no matter what happens. And it's more than just being happy. I just recently was in Japan with a group of absolutely amazing people. People who are Kriyabans and who really live the teachings, they don't just become boring, they become full of life and capable of doing all kinds of wonderful, amazing things. And when you just meet one person like that, you think, oh, well, maybe he's just special. Maybe he's incarnated a lot already or something. But when you meet a whole group of people who each one is super awesome, amazing, wonderful, can do all kinds of wonderful things, and is super kind and is joyful all the time and not all moody and yelling at you, you say, wait, it must be what these people are doing. And it's that they're all doing Kriya Yoga every day. And, why is Kriya also a very high science? Kriya gives us the ability to attune ourselves to great souls, to saints who know much more than just intellectual knowledge that you can read in books. Swami Kriyananda once was just trying to fathom Paramahansa Yogananda's consciousness because Paramahansa Yogananda said to Swami Kriyananda, I know every thought you think. And Swamiji went on to say that was because I was in tune with him and that I was wanting deeply to be in tune with him. And Paramahansa Yogananda could go into any person and figure out what they were thinking and what's going on in their life. He did that mainly, usually with people who wanted him to come in. And the more you would call on him, the more he would come into your life and help you take charge of your thoughts. But even this Kriya Yoga goes higher than just your thoughts. It goes all the way to expanding your consciousness to infinity, where you will become one with God, where you will know the thoughts of all mankind, past, present, and future, where you will become absolute master of your destiny, no longer whipped about by karma. And it won't be karma driving you to do certain things, that you will be able to choose and say, well, okay, now I'm a Jivan Mukta. I still have this karma, this karma, this karma, but I choose right now to do this particular one. I'll put that one on hold for a while. And yeah, it has to be worked out. We'll work it out. But can you imagine understanding all of your karma and knowing it that deeply that now you can choose and decide that you want to do this or that instead of just being pushed around like a puppet or whatever, a little child or something. And this is every human being's destiny, that we are all made in the image and likeness of God. But most human beings aren't really aware of that, nor do they care, which is fine. They can go through many incarnations and eventually they will want to achieve something higher and to have true joy. But for those of us who have kind of been beaten up enough, who have had enough suffering, then we can make a conscious choice that we want to rise above all suffering, all pain, all limitation. And then we can find a technique like Kriya Yoga and practice it. And it is scientific also, just as this tortoise that Master mentioned that breathes 4 times a minute. There's a science between our level of concentration and our breathing rate. And we can begin to take this science very deeply and control our breathing rate and learn to control our concentration and decide what is it that we want to concentrate on. And with Kriya Yoga, that we can concentrate on God or one of God's aspects. And it's not that you just feel, oh, now I'm a little peaceful. You become absolute, infinite peace. It's you're one with peace, as you know. Kriya also is part of India's unique and deathless contribution to the world's treasury of knowledge. I was just in Japan, and every continent, whatever, every race of people, culture adds different things to life, and we can all learn from one another. But India really is the guru of the world, and India adds, and it's such a simple thing that is written here, but that it adds that our breath and our life force and our mind, India shows us how these are all intimately tied together and that how we can learn to control any one of them. You learn to control the breath, you will learn to control the mind, you will learn to control the energy. And they are all tied together. And it's a beautiful thing in yoga where we begin to explore that and experience it and understand it. And ultimately, we can practice Kriya Yoga so deeply that breath can become mind. And I don't want to scare any new people out there, but we can learn to go so deep with Kriya Yoga that we can go beyond the breath and we can realize that it is a dream breath. Here's another example of how powerful karma is. Swami Kriyananda tells us that actually breathing is just a habit. It's just something, a habit that we've just been doing and doing, and it's a habit that can be broken. And when I first heard that, I was like, sure, really? It's just a habit? Because it seems like a pretty darn strong habit. And it is, because we've been doing it for a really, really long time. But it is just a habit. And we can rise above all habits. We can rise above all karma. And we can learn to completely control that and go into a state that is breathless and well beyond the space where we go into complete breathlessness, where we're in a state of samadhi. Even if we get the breath really, really calm, that we'll begin to feel deep levels of peace, deep levels of joy. Um, we can go so deep into that that even when the breath is still moving, we can feel our unity with all of the air on the entire planet, which is all connected. And we can begin to feel that it's like the entire planet's energy field is coming in and going out of us. And that's well before we get to a place of going completely breathless. And if in your meditations you find a little space where you feel a little bit of breathlessness, not breathlessness like I'm out of breath because I just ran faster than I ever should have. Breathlessness in the state where you've sat so still and you're so calm that you don't need to breathe anymore. Don't be afraid of that. Sit in that space. Enjoy that space. It means that you're going into your soul nature beyond this body, and it can be very enjoyable. Thank you all so much. It's been a great joy. And I want everyone to have a great evening and day.